Networking and marketing made simple is for you, the business owner who has a product, a service, or a message that you believe in. My name is Scott Aaron, and each week we'll take a behind-the-scenes look into the real-world marketing and networking tactics and strategies for getting what you have in front of you to a lot more people. Thanks for spending time with me, and now let's get started. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Networking and Marketing Made Simple. Super excited for today's episode, as I always am. And I know you always are when I ever do these interviews with amazing entrepreneurs out there doing big things. And super excited to have Becky Peterson on today. Becky and I actually met via LinkedIn, of all places, about a year ago. And we were just connecting, networking, and she's doing something really, really unique within the health and wellness space. But what she was offering and what help she needed, I actually felt I wasn't the best fit for her. And I redirected the conversation to my wife. And they've actually been doing work together for about 8 or 9 months now. And we're going to kind of dig into all of that as well. But why I wanted Becky to come on to the show today is just to kind of share with all of you that pivots sometimes come in the strangest of places and the strangest of ways. And Becky will share with you that it wasn't until she was on vacation, of all places, with her family that she had this light bulb moment. And being a doctor and a medical professional, and then kind of going in the opposite direction in the sense of creating her own business with her own health and wellness, but also medical background, has led her onto this incredible journey that she's on. So with all that being said, Becky, welcome to today's episode.
Hi, Scott. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Absolutely. So before we dive into everything, obviously you do have a medical professional background. You were and still are a highly, highly respected doctor in the medical field. So talk a little bit about what led you down that path of really getting into the medical industry and the medical field, serving people in that capacity, but also talk about that aha moment that I mentioned when you were on vacation. I believe it was Hawaii, where things kind of came to fruition of things that you wanted to do to better the health and wellness industry that started with your own health and wellness, things that you saw that were missing.
Yeah. So the reason I decided to go into healthcare was I always was interested in science and I wanted to help people. But from a personal level, I've always been very interested in my own health and wellness. I've been a vegetarian since I was 13. I have just lived a very healthy lifestyle. And so going through medical school and becoming a doctor and specializing in neuroradiology, which is brain and spine imaging, was my way of incorporating my love for science, my love for healthy living, and helping people. And it was extremely challenging, humbling, rewarding. Being in medicine is an incredible journey. Meantime, I was getting married and having kids, and 3 little boys later was struggling to find that work-life balance that so many people struggle to find. And for me, my key to keeping my wellness was always physical activity, and specifically running. And I got into running after college. I did lacrosse, rugby in college, but like anytime someone told me to run, I didn't want to run. But once I was the one deciding that I wanted to run, I fell in love with it. And so I started training for marathons, running a couple marathons out on the West Coast, and doing a lot of trail running, and just really loved combining running with being in the woods. And so it was just very balancing for me. And so through this journey of, suddenly having 3 little boys, my youngest was 6 months old, and just, looking at where's the rest of my life going and how am I going to have it be the life I want to live. I just could see the writing on the wall that something had to give. And for me, my personal health and wellness and the health and wellness of my family came first. And so it really became a huge moment where it's like, what comes next. And that's to step off of the track for healthcare is a huge, I mean, you've invested, any career, you've invested so much time, energy, and money. But in medicine, it's times 10. And so it was a huge decision to say, what can I do that will allow me to have more balance in my life? And for me, I've always been very creative. I love, oil painting and creative writing. And so that creative side of me was sort of wanting to have more attention. And so it was kind of a confluence of things where I was running and I felt like I was always dehydrated, and I was a doctor and I know better, and I was dehydrated. I'm like, why is it so hard to stay hydrated? I don't understand. And like, you'd see medical residents getting kidney stones because they're not drinking enough water. So many diseases are caused or precipitated by dehydration. So why is this complicated? And for me, I felt like there just was not that solution that checked all the boxes, right? So either something had tasted good, but it had a ton of sugar and that felt kind of gross, or it had, chemical coloring or preservatives, or it didn't have a lot of sugar, but it had artificial sweeteners, which aren't good for your body. And so it was like, there was nothing out there that had like just the right amount of electrolytes, not too much salt, good flavor, but healthy ingredients and not tons of sugar. And so I just started playing around. Sorry, my dog is climbing on me. I just started playing around in the kitchen because I wanted something for myself. And it kind of, while I was just going through this moment of transition, it kind of occurred to me that there might be something there. There might be something that other people would want and would benefit from. So that was, I was trying to pour Country Time lemonade mix into my water bottle before a run, and it was spilling everywhere. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way. Yeah.
I could totally resonate with that, just in the sense that, I was still on aspects of the health and wellness stream I'm still involved with, but, I was a sports nutritionist and personal trainer for 18 years. And that was, the utmost concern of myself. And then my family and my clients, obviously, is making sure they were putting the right things into their body. And I think until you're fully educated on exactly what you should be looking for, and you maybe buy products from GNC or Vitamin Shop or bodybuilding.com, or, there's a lot of also network marketing companies out there that have, I'll put in quotations, hydration products, but what to the everyday person,
right,
they feel that is a top tier product to take because it's coming from a company that they've partnered with. But in a lot of cases, if you end up looking at a lot of the ingredients, you'll see that it maybe checks some of those boxes that you were speaking about. Maybe they're low in sugar, but they're high in artificial sweeteners. Maybe they're low in artificial sweeteners, but high in sugar and not enough sodium. So before we dive into a little bit about what you're doing now, for anyone that's listening, that's in the health and wellness space or is a practitioner of their own self-care via health and wellness, and they're taking some sort of hydration or maybe even a pre-workout type product, what are some warning signs or things they should look for within those products via the nutrition label that they should consider maybe switching to something else?
Yeah. So something I saw when I was practicing medicine is that people would focus on one aspect of their health at the expense of another aspect of their health. And when I created Skidago, I really wanted it to be about whole body health. So you don't squeeze one area, for something else. And so, there's things that have, again, as you were saying, like some of these ingredients that are in a lot of the products that are out there. For example, dextrose and maltodextrin are very common sort of sugar substitutes, but these products are highly processed. And we're learning more and more about how the extent of processing affects the way food affects our body. Our body doesn't like things that have been highly processed. The closer to nature it is, the more our body knows what to do with it. And the more the research is coming out, people are learning so much more about the gut microbiome. And who would have thought that bacteria in our gut would have such an impact on our overall health, being linked to, depression? Like, we would never have imagined this several years ago. So the thing is when I was going through it, I played around with all these ingredients, and then I would do the research and say, I don't want that in my body. So my product won't have dextrose or maltodextrin. So then you move on to the sugar alcohols like erythritol, sorbitol, all of these basically they don't give you a ton of calories, but they're highly processed. And again, a lot of people, I don't want that in my body, but also it can cause gastric distress. So people may get bloating, the type of thing that you don't want if you're doing an Ironman. You don't want to have gastric problems. Every athlete knows that. And then the newest player is stevia, which is, a lot of people have touted as like, this is the miracle one. And we've been this road before where we think something's a miracle and then we find out it's not maybe that great. But stevia, again, even though the stevia leaf is natural, stevia itself is highly processed. And so for me, it's all about minimal processing. So something that has organic cane sugar, which is a minimally processed form of sugar, which your body actually needs for hydration. So the sugar is not just for flavor, which I think people are becoming more educated on. There's actually a pump in your intestine that only works to pull in the electrolytes in the water if you have a tiny bit of sugar there. So a clean source of that tiny bit of sugar is really key when you're talking about electrolytes. And again, obviously any preservatives, any artificial flavors, but people are becoming more, companies are becoming more savvy in terms of how they label things. There's sort of a catch-all phrase that's natural flavors. And that is a very misleading term. Whenever you see natural flavors on a product, there's a lot of things that are highly processed and most of us would never consider natural that can fall into that category. So I think minimal number of ingredients and recognizable ingredients is the key.
Yeah, I mean, Nancy and I swear and live by Skidago just for our own personal health reasons. We are very, very focused on what we do and do not put into our bodies. We have a very strict regimen of making sure that every aspect of our health is taken care of. We do not miss doctor's appointments. We see the dermatologist regularly. We go to all of our regular physicals each year, making sure that we get our blood drawn every single year, making sure that we're not lacking in any certain vitamins. And obviously, we were lacking in vitamin D, but that was to be expected because during the pandemic, a lot of people weren't getting outside, but we were always taking about 3,000 IUs of vitamin D anyway. So it was somewhat regulated. But you bring up a very valid point that you don't want to give up one area of your health and trade it in for another. And you mentioned your company, Skidago. That is the name of the product. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about how Skidago came about, but also what the word Skidago means?
So Skidago is actually a word that I created. And I was playing around with sounds and letters, and I wanted the name to have I was inspired by a Scandinavian way of living that is focused on balance. And again, what I'm talking about really comes back to balance. A lot of the nutrition trends are very extreme, and then we kind of pull back from them. So for example, in the 90s, it was low fat. And if you remember Snackwell cookies, I ate a ton of those, and the non-fat cheese and all this stuff that was like so highly processed, but it had no fat, and fat was the devil in the 90s, right? And so now, I mean, you would never have believed that you have something called fat bombs that people are buying on purpose and putting into their body. So we ride this pendulum of like, who's the devil? Is the devil fat? Is the devil sugar? And I think this black and white thinking is really to our detriment. We're kind of missing the boat. There is a balance, and we need to not ride that pendulum to such extremes. And so Skidago, the word means whole body health. And again, it talks about, it's talking to not sacrificing one part of your health for another, whether it's mental health or physical health. I mean, it's all interconnected. You have to kind of look at the big picture. And so, so that's how I came up with the name Skidago.
So as far as the journey that you've been on, obviously being a medical professional and now serving the health and wellness community. What do you think is the biggest lesson learned being on the other side of it? Meaning, being a practitioner in a hospital, being in the healthcare field, but now being on the opposite side of it, being a holistic wellness practitioner that now supplies the world with a product that helps them. So what's the biggest lesson that you've learned during that whole journey?
I think that, it's not news that we can have, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Basically, you don't want to be in the hospital, right? So once you're there, the ship has kind of sailed. And the point is, there's so much more that we can do in the way we live our lives to prevent landing in the hospital. And, dehydration is a huge medical issue. I think it's upwards of $5 billion a year in healthcare costs. And so this is, it seems like, wow, I'm doing this thing that's not, but this is medicine at its like most basic form, right? Like our cells just work properly when they're hydrated. Like that's it. And so the potential for impact, I feel is extremely high to have people kind of tune themselves up, and then we can prevent going down the road of all these different diseases. So for me, it's very empowering to feel like I can do something before people get to the hospital, which is where I was seeing people before.
So being where you are now, and it's good that you're here because this is an entrepreneur-based podcast, and most of the people that listen to this are in entrepreneurship. So, now they're hearing someone that in their minds had a elite level paying profession, being in the medical field, that has traded that in for going down the entrepreneur route to creating their own product, being their own boss, doing all those things. What's your message to those individuals that are listening to this that maybe are still in that corporate hamster wheel, that they've been having this pull from the universe, so to speak, of doing more, being more, having more, but helping more people? And what could that individual do to start leaning into it? And again, it's not, writing your resignation paper tomorrow.
Right.
It's about kind of leaning into things. So talk through a little bit of the process of how you went through all that, and what someone else can do if they feel internally they have that same kind of calling.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing I would say is that making the jump is extremely humbling. So get ready to eat a lot of humble pie. If know if you're the kind of person whose ego can take that kind of hit, because to go from being, I was head of MRI at the hospital, respected professional, to go from doing that to having conversations where I was completely out of my comfort zone was the opposite of a professional. I had to really brought me down to my core of who am I and where do I look for validation? Am I looking for external validation or internal validation? Because I wasn't getting, it's a long stretch of not getting external validation. You got to know that you are going to be able to weather that storm, just because it is a big change. It is a really big change in how you value yourself and how people will value you. Some people will be like, oh, it's so cool you're an entrepreneur. And some people will be like, oh my God, I cannot believe what you just gave up. And so, but for me, I've always loved the Zen beginner's mind thinking, where I want to live life with sort of wide open curiosity. And to be an expert, you kind of have to move away from that. And I am loving just beginner's mind. Like, I don't mind having people think I don't know what I'm doing sometimes, because I have this inner confidence that I know enough what I'm doing that I'm going to find my way. So I would say, maybe test the waters in a way that is not high risk. If you can start dabbling in something on the side and see how much you're getting back from that and how you feel. And if there's, a viable path ahead, obviously that's the best way to do it, just to hedge your bets. So I think that would be my best advice.
That's great advice. And I think the listeners also need to know, and they've heard my story various times, is that, entrepreneurship, whenever you're doing something, for yourself, there's no picture of what that looks like. So it's like a puzzle box. And, being a mom, you can relate to this. When we get puzzles for our kids, the normal thing for them to do is to dump all those pieces out on the table, put the cover of what the picture looks like, and they just start matching up the pieces. But in entrepreneurship, especially what you and I are doing, and Nancy as well, you dump all those pieces out, but there's no picture on the cover of that box. And you're like, oh my God, now I have to figure this thing out. And yes, it's not an immediate thing. It takes time. Entrepreneurship, much like life is, and you'll relate to this, is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Everyone is trying to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible. But if you skip over any of those steps in between, you're going to miss the boat. You are going to miss all of those important things, whether they're lessons, whether there's victories or failures or whatever they are, that compoundedly help you to really become not only the person you were meant to be, but to have the impact that you were always meant to have on those around you. And I think you're a prime example of that, because the mindset of someone that hears, oh my God, here's someone that was the head of MRI, at a prestigious hospital, respected medical professional, who basically handed in her coat to start her own wellness company. People will be like, you're crazy. But yes, there is a smidgen of craziness when you do go out on your own as an entrepreneur. Now, for me, I've been an entrepreneur my entire life. I tell people, and I've said this before, I've been psychologically unemployable since day one. So I've never had a boss. I'm never going to have a boss. But the shift that people need to make from the employee or business-minded individual to go to now being the entrepreneur mindset, it's a huge shift. And it's not even a mindset thing. It's a skill set thing. It's eating, like you said, as much of that humble pie as possible, because on the flip side of working in corporate to then going to entrepreneurship, it's like you're floating in the ocean with a life preserver, and you're just looking for someone to come rescue you. But the only person that can truly rescue you is yourself. It's something that you have to go through. You have to float as long as you can in that ocean until you finally see the shore in front of you. It may take 6 months, it may take 6 years, but as long as you keep moving forward, you will get to that shore eventually. So now that you've been on the other side and you've been on every side of the coin possible, to this date, what would you say is the greatest victory that you are most proud of your journey, that other people need to know?
Most proud of my journey. I would say that along the way, and speaking to your marathon analogy, it is a marathon, but I would also say it's like, I think of it as like I'm crossing a stream and there's stepping stones, and there's one over here and then there's one over there, and it's so zigzaggy. So it's like running a marathon with tons of zigs and zags. And so it is not a straight line. But it's also not seeing that as failure. It's seeing that as growth. And you're kind of putting, each time you zig, you put another tool in your tool belt that you can pull out at a later date. So it's not like there's a lot of waste. But yeah, I mean, I would say for me, there's been times when people say, kind of, who do you think you are, trying to take on the, electrolyte industry, or, people who have sort of tried to put me in my place. And I would say that anytime someone tells me something can't be done, inside I say, watch me do it. And I'm really proud of that. And that's kind of the mantra I live by.
I love that mentality. It's, keep the people close to you that are cheering you on, but keep the people that are hating on you even closer, because those are the ones that drive you forward. Because it's not trying to prove anybody wrong, but when someone says that can't be done, again, it's the just watch me mentality, because if something has been accomplished in business before, so if there's been an electrolyte company out there that has had proven success, it's been done. And you know what? It can be done again. And why not you? Yeah. So tell the audience a little bit about Skidago, not just as a product, but as a business, and where you see the evolution of this company and business going in the next couple of years?
Yeah, so right now, again, I'm still relatively, it's in the infancy of the growth of the business. So right now we're just, we had proof of concept. We've been having great feedback on the product. People are really excited about it. And so I've invested the last 6 to 8 months on package redesign, really making everything more sleek and modern, and really leveling it up for the next phase. We just signed on Zoe Kalapos, who's an Olympic snowboarding hopeful for 2022. We're so excited about that. And that really right now, our business approach is super grassroots, brand ambassadors. I don't want salespeople. I want people who love Skidago to tell people about Skidago. I never want to sell anybody anything. I want them to want it. And so it's really just leaning into our network and getting people to try it. And I feel like once people try it, they are on board, and so spreading the word. And so once we get the new product, the new packaging out, my hope is to, start looking at getting financial backing to really expand the business.
Love that. So how can the listeners find out more about Skidago, and where can they go to find out more?
If you go to skidago.com, SKEDAGO.com, and there's a contact form, but you can also just email me, Becky@Skidago. And please do reach out. And I love, sending people samples so they can try the product and answer any questions they may have. If there's retailers in your area, I'm also trying to have a grassroots retail approach rather than trying to get into the big stores, just, small communities and, places that have active lifestyles, just getting into the local store where people go in before their bike ride to just be able to grab it. And so just reach out, and I'd be happy to connect and tell you more about the product, send you samples, and we're always looking for brand ambassadors.
Awesome. So all that information of the brand ambassadorship, but also how to connect with Becky via email or the website, will be in the description of the episode. And I highly encourage all of you. This is something that Nancy and I completely support. It's in our cupboard. It has been for the last 6 months, and it's not leaving. So we couldn't recommend this product any more highly than we already do. So Becky, before we end today's episode, I have one final question for you. And that is, what does success truly mean to you?
What does success mean to me? Success means to me to get Skidago to a point where I can start to have social impact. I would love to have it become financially viable enough that I can really look at ways to partner with different organizations that are trying to make hydration a priority, whether it's with firefighters, where it's a huge issue, frontline workers, elderly, and also in terms of environmental impact. Skidago is a portable thing that you add to your water bottle. So huge supporter of everyone using reusable water bottles, getting away from single-use plastics. So I have a vision that I really want Skidago to be my platform to move that forward. And
again, I've done probably close to 200 interviews to this point on my podcast, and not one person has said it's all about the money. And even though you mentioned a financial goal within the company and business, it's to make that social impact, and it's to be able to give back to so many people, which the most successful people end up doing. That you have to give as much as you can in order to get back. And that's, the money is just a side effect of the lives that you impact along the way. And I can tell you that that is what you're doing, and it's what you're going to continue to do. And I am so excited, I know Nancy is as well, to see that social impact grow and the company go where it's going. So first, we just wanted to say congratulations on everything so far. And second, just grateful and honored to have you on here today. And thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here.
Thanks so much, Scott. I'm so glad we connected.
Absolutely. So everyone, again, if there's any interest in finding out anything about Skidago, whether it's the ambassadorship or generally connecting with Becky, getting some free samples, checking out the website, all of that information will be in the description of the episode. And I highly encourage you to do so. So everyone, please enjoy the rest of your days, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye, everyone. thank you so much again for checking out today's episode. And if you are listening through iTunes, Spotify, wherever you are, please leave me a rating and review. Let me know what you loved, what you would like to see improved, or ideas you have for future episodes. And if you are interested in taking your business to the next level, don't hesitate to go to my website, www.scottaaron.net, where you can schedule a free discovery call with me, where I can learn more about you, your business, what you're struggling with, and how we can work together. And don't forget to check out my wife, Nancy, and mine, our free community on Facebook called LinkedIn Leads for Life. We would love to see you in there. Have a great rest of your day. And thank you everyone for your support. Grateful for each and every one of you.